Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lavender Water Podcast. This is your host, Matthew Williams, and today I am being joined by a special guest. She's a good Facebook friend, Facebook acquaintance of mine, hip-hop enthusiast, urban historian, social worker, brand owner, writer, all-around creative, and wonderful person to be knowing online. Give it up for Karen Garcia.
Woo! Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for making an appearance. You're one of the special people that I was like, man, I got to get this person on the show to let these people know what's going on out here.
Right.
So I understand that you have a passion for preserving culture where it's being removed, celebrating history, celebrating us. It's just a wonderful thing to see because it's like, with all the gentrification going around cross country, it's really easy to forget the roots of the city. Like, back in Cincinnati, Ohio, they used to have this mural of 4 rappers. It was Tupac, Biggie, Jay-Z, and Big Pun. And it's like, in Cincinnati, we don't have a popular hip-hop scene. Like, we got plenty rappers, but not many that the world knows by name. So it's like, to me, that mural meant a lot. And then when they started gentrifying the hood, it was taken over by the smoke shop Arabic dudes. They got rid of the mural. They selling phones and food out the same place. It's crazy.
Yeah. Actually, out here, it's kind of opposite, right? So because I'm from New York, from New York City, obviously, like the birthplace of hip-hop, well-known for that, they kind of use that culture to sell it to people. So you'll have a bunch of places like where I live in Bed-Stuy, whatever, a bunch of Biggie murals. Like there's always been Biggie murals and things celebrating him because he's like, outside of Jay-Z, like the most popular rappers to come out of Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn in general. So there's a bunch of them that commemorate him, especially like around where he grew up. But also throughout Bushwick and New York City in general, they sell culture to kind of like have people come and attract people here. So they've been recently doing it in the Bronx, where like, obviously like it's ZZ birthplace of hip hop. They've been using that culture. If you remember that TV series Get Down, that was not TV, the Netflix series that was there called the Get Down. Around that time they started like having a lot of art shows with real estate developers. And they really were just basically using that to kind of like bring people over and try to sell the Bronx to the people because I'm pretty sure the common sentiment that the Bronx is probably the most unappealing borough outside of like Staten Island. So I'm pretty sure you probably see that online and I've said it and you've seen other people say it, whatever. It's kind of like a common sentiment online. So they've been using that for years to kind of sell new people to come here. Like, oh yeah, it's so hip and artsy. Like all about New York City is the hip, artsy, hip hop, free place. People come here. It's like arts. It's like art and finance and tech at the same time. It's like they use the fuck out of the culture here to sell it to people, and at the same time pricing the people out. So it's like a catch-22 because the people who are here that cultivated that culture with nothing that they had, it was born out of nothing, like out of nothingness. And the have-nots and shit like that. You price the fuck out of the people who helped to cultivate that and whose material conditions and living conditions were based on that. You price them out, and then there's no one here to really preserve that, right? Because the people who was born out of are being priced out, or they're being forced to move upstate, down south, more into the Bronx and more up out that way. It's like to have a rush of hipsters come here and take pictures of our Biggie murals or take pictures of our Marcy projects. You see people throwing up the rock and shit like that. That shit is crazy. Like, a long time ago, like about 10 years ago, white people was not trying to walk past no Marcy Project. The only white people that was walking past that was the Jews. Literally, literally, because the Jews live on that other side of Bed-Stuy, where it's a bunch of a bunch of them. It's like the little communities there, whatever. So they was the only ones that was walking past, and probably a social worker and shit like that, and people who own businesses that around it that were white. But other than that, it wasn't white people voluntarily going there to take pictures in front of Marcy Projects. Like Marcy Projects, you know what I'm saying? Like it's so wild seeing that because I spent some time around that area because Marcy is also next to two other projects. But so it was like, think about like a line of projects, three back to back. So it was Marcy, Tompkins, and then Sumner. So I grew up a little bit in the middle between for a few years with my mom and shit like that. And it was a gun zone, like shootings in the daytime, shootings at any time, like in front of people. Didn't really matter. It's calmed down a bit, but it's still wild. You know what I'm saying? But like, to have little pockets like that, and then have white people walking past, or non-black people walking past, or people who's not from the area walking past, like people lost their lives here. People was terrorized growing up here. People were so poor growing up here, and it's just to see people like living around that, because even though a lot of people had to leave and the price side and stuff like that, it's still here. So it's like living in two different cities in one neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like it's wild. Right. Yeah.
So it's funny you say it that way, because I have a friend in San Francisco, California, and that's basically how he's describing the gentrification in his neighborhood, because it's like they're gentrifying, everything, but it's like mainly the Mission, which is like really a big mix of like Latino different communities. You got like Honduran food, El Salvadoran food, Mexican, it's just all the people, and to see white people going up and down, jogging, walking their dogs and stuff. And he's like, it's not the same San Francisco that I grew up with, man. And I'm like, honestly, until I came here, I didn't know San Francisco was gritty.
The Bay, yeah. I didn't know too much about the Bay Area. The Bay Area was like that as well. My friend, I have a good friend. She's from San Francisco. Me and her always go back and forth. My friend Tiffany, shout out to her, Tiffany Ward. She and I always talk about Brooklyn and San Francisco. But yeah, the Bay Area is a little rough there.
Yeah. So I want to get into your brand, Make New York Grimy Again. How did it start? What fuels you to keep going with it, and where do you want to see it in the future?
Okay, so 3 good questions. I can answer them all. I will answer them all. So it started off as like a joke for me, right? Not as in like the brand being a joke, but like it started off as an actual joke for me, because like obviously I told you I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Brooklyn all my life. I started seeing like what you call the neighborhood's changing. I'm like, shit, we gotta make Brooklyn grimy again, so get these motherfuckers out of here, because they wasn't here when we was going through our shit. Like they wasn't here for that. Like when we had to when we was like living in like some crazy conditions where it was not pretty. No one wanted to come here. So I started it off as a joke, whatever. It was a joke that I put up on Facebook one time, and people was like laughing at it. They was like, word. It was a joke. Then that was like around 2017. Well, not 2016. I think so. Sometime around that time. I can't remember. I have like a screenshot of it because I felt like it was so funny to have that. So I was like, there's a lot of things. I was in my college, my probably 3rd or 4th year of college, right? My most recent degree. And I was like, what do I want to do? What can I do to have all my passions in one? Like, I really love hip hop. I really love history. I really love culture. I really like commentating on like politics, local politics and shit like that, and just giving my ratchet 2-piece to it, whatever, 2 cents to it, excuse me. And I was on a train. I was thinking like, oh, this joke that I made could literally be like a website name, because it's something that's catchy. it could be polarizing because people hear the name, they think I'm talking about like, oh, make the shit dusty and grimy and violent again. Like, no, I really was using that to make it a hip hop website. So it was gonna be. I started off like really writing about like local New York City hip hop underground, and then I pivoted to like mostly about history. Because I was in a history program at my school, Mercy College, and I was writing about my thesis, which was like how Bed-Stuy and Harlem became black, and I was like, this is gonna be my baby, which is still my baby, you know, and I'm going to actually start writing a lot more about like, you know, New York City history, because when I first started off, I was writing about gentrification and hip hop mostly. You could go back, like it took me about like my third or fourth post to start writing about history specifically. But I realized like, yo, there's like so much things that happen to Black people in New York City, but because New York City is known as a liberal city, it doesn't have the reputation like the South does, where it's like, oh, the Bible Belt, the Black Delta, like the Delta area, like the Black Belt and stuff like that, like
yeah, that's what I wanted to add real quick, was that, like, because it's above the Mason-Dixon line, that everyone's like, oh, there was no slaves, it's not racist.
Right.
And it's like, those places above it are usually the places it went down the most.
Right. Right. And we definitely have slavery in New York, you know, like, but it's never been characterized as like a slavery in the South, you know what I'm saying? Like, because of like the two different kinds of conditions people was like in the South. It was very more rural, and in the North it was very more industrial and shit like that, you know. So, but the Black history in New York City is like being kept under wraps. Like it's not really talked about. So when I was doing my thesis, I was like, damn, like this shit was it was fucked up how Black people was being treated just in just early 1900s. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was like, I want to make it my mission to bring the history of New York City, the Black history of New York City, to the forefront and teach people about things that happened within just the 5 boroughs alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I pivoted a lot to history, and ever since then I've been writing a lot of historical articles, and I still write. I'm trying to bring back like more about commentating on hip hop histories as well in New York City, because I kind of fell back on writing articles for local artists because I don't really fuck with these niggas like that. Not to be disrespectful, but it's just like I don't really like how
going on.
Yeah, and also I don't like how I don't really like how some of them move. They be acting like oh, you gotta do like you they made it, some shit like that. Like, I'm sorry, it's some kind of delusions niggas be having, but yeah, yeah. So, and also yeah, I feel like there's so much more to it that I like to do, more than just like writing articles with people and shit like that, like about their EPs and their mixtapes and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it started, and I'm still going. I have my moments where I want to give up, and I think a lot of people go through that when they have a brand and they're creative and stuff like that. If you're a content creator, you have moments where you probably be like, yo, this shit kind of feels stupid, or it feels like it's not going anywhere. But I've been validated in many things because I have like an organic readership. I've been doing this since 2017. So it's about 5 years now. I made 5 years this year. And I have organic readership. Like, I average about like 15 to 20K. I've been averaging like 15 to 20K readers a year organically, no paid ads, no paid stuff. So that's pretty good for like organic, like, you know, impressions and people actually coming to the site and reading and stuff like that. You know, like to get 15,000 readerships for like history and stuff like that is crazy in a year, in my opinion, because people don't like to read no more.
I'm definitely one of those people. I never liked reading. I like being read to, so audiobooks saved my life.
Yeah, which is the reason why I kind of also realized I should turn this into a podcast. Me reading the articles out for people and hitting all kinds of audiences of people, because not everyone's a reader, you know? And sometimes my articles be kind of long. I understand that sometimes people don't have the attention span for it. So I started branching out to recently, like I think sometime last year, to start reading the articles out loud and recording them and having them for people to listen to. I got to be more consistent with that too. What keeps me going is like knowing that people are reading my articles and seeing the hits that I've been getting and seeing the comments and people sharing my articles. Just recently, I had wrote an article, I believe last year, about this man named Samuel Brown in Staten Island, and about how him and his wife moved to this. They bought this home out there, and there was racist white people out there, obviously trying to get them out. And just lo and behold, on Friday, I get a comment from his grandson about how the article is pretty accurate. The only thing that was like inaccurate kind of was the addresses of where they live, but the actual narrative was correct. So I was like, oh shit, like stuff like that. I'm like, I'm preserving someone else's family's history by the shit that I'm doing. I never thought about it like that. My great grandfather was a historian, and he wrote about, you know, like the city that we're from in the Dominican Republic called Barahona. So I've seen articles written about him online. So, and that always gives some kind of gratification. Like, my great grandfather was like a great man. So seeing that I'm also doing the same thing for other people and stuff like that, that's gratifying. You know, like it's like a sense of gratification that I'm getting, that I'm fulfilling like what I intend to do with my website. You know.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah.
Puts a smile on my soul.
Yeah, exactly. So where I see the brand in like 5 years, I'm planning to work on a documentary for my thesis, how Harlem Bedside became Black.
Okay.
I want to see that become a thing within 2 years. I'm giving myself 2 years to complete that, but I think I could do it underneath 2 years, maybe a year or a year and a half. I want it to be a documentary. It's a topic that I've been passionate about. Harlem and Bedside are two of the biggest African American neighborhoods in New York City historically, and they've always had some kind of like similarities with each other because the people that came from Harlem from the Great Migration moved through Bed-Stuy through the A train. So the same character, those people that they had in Harlem, they brought the same character to the neighborhood of Bed-Stuy. So the characters in the neighborhood are pretty similar because of that. So I want my documentary to be done and observed by people and watched, and if it has to be a docuseries, so be it. If it has to be one full documentary, so be it. I want to start working on that, which I plan to start working on it. I've started my work, but like the actual filming process, I want to start working on that probably sometime this year before the year ends. What else? I want to see I want to start using some paid ads to get the readership even bigger and reach bigger audiences and stuff like that. I want to grow the podcast. I want it to be a brand that's known locally. I think I'm pretty known locally as well. I always get people who, you know, enjoy my work, but I want it to be a bigger brand and possibly like a company where I could just have all my shit under one thing and continue to put out that product and teach people history of New York City and stuff like that, and comment on culture and comment on all types of stuff like that. It's all about consistency, and you know, I can see myself doing that within 5 years, definitely.
Well, I can see you fulfilling it. I can see it working for you right now as we speak. I want to tell you, it's very informative for people that are not from New York. You know, so I'm from Ohio, so you know, all I got from New York is Grand Theft Auto, rap music, movies, comic books. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, in a sense, like I kind of feel like I'm like, you know, kind of removed from the city, but it's like, you know, it's almost my city, like it is people that are born there, from there. You know what I'm saying? So the first time I went, like 2020. You know, just it's like you've seen it so many times, then to really be in it, it's like, wow, it's real life. Okay, you know, so I feel the energy, I see the diversity, I can see how the city is changing because I feel incredibly safe. You know what I'm saying? Usually everyone's like, I hate New York because I got robbed 3 times on the same block, or I got beat up, I got catcalled, I got. You know, but it's a pandemic, so everybody's inside, you know, so I kind of had free mode on the city a little bit. But, yeah, I truly appreciate, like, the history and things that I wouldn't guess, you know, happened there because of the picture that America paints. oh yeah, you know, the racism was only in the South. Only the KKK was
Right.
in the South. You know, you go to Ohio, which is one state above the Mason-Dixon line. You got Confederate flags. You got sundown towns. You got a lot.
Yeah, seriously, yeah. And I always be saying, like, low key, New York City has sundown towns, like places like Bensonhurst and Howard Beach, and pretty sure places in Staten Island where you don't want to be a nigga there at past sundown and shit like that. Like, it's crazy. Like, definitely New York City has hidden its liberal liberal racism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many instances of like institutionalized racism, systemic racism, whatever you want to call it, here in New York City. But again, New York City is seen as a diverse melting pot of places and stuff like that. So because of that, it doesn't have the reputation. But definitely, New York City is definitely like has a dark history and a dark past as well, especially in regards to Black people, throughout the diaspora, whether African American, Caribbean, African. So definitely, like there's been slave ships that have been found here. Like we have a few African burial grounds here. One in Manhattan, one out here in Bed-Stuy. Not Bed-Stuy, Flatbush. Yeah, we have a few. Definitely, New York City has a history. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just learned Central Park is technically an African American burial ground.
Seneca Village. Yes, they pushed all the Black people from there to further uptown. So a lot of them also ended up living in Harlem as well. And Central Park got built on top of that.
Mm.
It's crazy.
It's like, yeah, with that being said, and you just looking at it, it's like, man, all of this for recreation and people were thriving here. Thanks.
Yeah. Like, it's literally just a fucking big-ass park now. And a park that I really can't stand either because it's one of those tourist destination parks. Like, oh, come to Central Park. You know, you think about, oh, what do we do in Manhattan as a tourist? You visit Central Park, you visit Times Square, you visit Broadway, you visit all those places like that. It's like they displace Black people just for it to be a fucking tourist destination in the future. It's wild.
It's the Instagram picture.
Right, seriously. And it's just wild how Black people are just, it's like the displacement of Black people has not been a new phenomenon. Black people were taken from Africa, turned into slaves, brought here, having to have double consciousness, brought here in America, brought to the Caribbean, brought to other places, and had to have this double consciousness of like, all right, this is my identity, and this is what was stripped from me, and then that continuously being a thing for like Black diasporans and their identity, especially African American people, right? Because African American people are always the ones being told, oh, you don't have culture, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that, so a lot of sense of like confusion around identity and, oh, I'm Black and I'm American, but because I'm Black, I'm not having the same American experience as this white person here, you know what I'm saying? So shit like that. And then constantly being moved, and then the Great Migration, being moved around, going around the country to flee the South, and just building enclaves in other places, and this is development of the culture and stuff like that because of all the conditions that were put in place for Black people here, and it's a constant movement and a displacement all the time that's happening to Black people, whether it's like in modern times or like throughout history. So I think that's a very important thing to also think about as well, So we talk about like gentrification, like this is not something that's not like new, like technically it wasn't called gentrification when the fucking African Americans were moved from Seneca Village. It has to be moved uptown, but they were pushed out. So you see this kind of movement has always been a thing for Black people and stuff like that. Definitely. I should write about that. I just thought about it.
And like the craziest thing of it all to me is how you give Black people the littlest, the meagerest amount of anything, right? And then we turn it to gold. You give us scraps, we give you soul food.
Right.
You give us displacement and no culture, we create culture. But ironically,
Right.
they want it when we create something from it.
They shame you for it at first. They shame you for it for a minute. The way hip hop was shamed and told it was gonna be a fad, and it was a problem with white America. That's why their children was acting up. All types of shit. Hip hop is the reason for gun violence and poverty and all type of shit like that. Knowing damn well that's not true. But once they realized they could profit off of it, like hip hop being the youngest genre to date, just turning 50 years old, they were able to capitalize on that shit so quickly. They went through the campaign of trying to shit on it and saying this is the reason, this is the problem with Black America and blah blah blah. To you have a bunch of these white rappers, you have the Young Leans, you have the all these people, like whether you like them or not, they would not be a thing if it wasn't something for white America to capitalize off. A lot of Post Malone was not a hip hop artist in my opinion, but he's always being characterized as hip hop and categorized as hip hop. But that nigga started off as a folk singer or some kind of shit like that, and he was able to come in like it's just wild how they would take literally anything that Black people do, especially African Americans specifically, because we're talking about here in the U.S. Like the culture that here dominates African American culture. African Americans were the ones that had to deal with the identity double consciousness of being Black and American, but also being this knowing that you're African, but you have no ties to that because you don't know where fucking Africa you were from, what tribe you were from, you don't know no languages, so you kind of like divorced from that. Like you know that you're African, you know you were African descendant, but you American. So all the things that Black people here in the U.S., like African Americans, have to deal with, and to continue to make it's so many. It's not even just hip hop. It's like so many cultures and so many things because there's different kind of Black cultures out throughout the U.S. too. So it's just wild. Like taking the scraps and making all these different kind of things, these different kind of cultures, and having these people pretty much capitalize off that and shame you for it, but then shame you for it in one instance and making a buck off of it. It's just wild seeing it in real time and seeing it happen. And as you get older, you realize and learn about it, and seeing it happen at the moment it's just something to really like sit and think about.
Do you remember that era when you would talk to white people and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't listen to rap unless it's Eminem"?
Yes. Yeah. I remember that type of shit. I remember that.
And then you ask why? Why is Eminem the only rapper you listen to? Like, he's the best one. I was like, well, is he really the best one? Though? It's like,
he's really the best one. He's the best one for you. He's the best one for you. Like,
in that time period, it was kind of like you could argue that Eminem was the best rapper. Like, I guess, like, technically, you know what I'm saying? But it's like years later, it's like he has no hits that survived the times. Nobody trying to hear that.
Poorly.
So it's like, man, like, are people still riding on that bus, or have they died on that hill?
I think people have died. I think he has a huge. People don't understand. Like people know, but people don't realize how big his fan base is, and to the core, like what the identity of them people are. Those are the middle America motherfuckers that a Jay-Z is not tapping, that a Nas is not tapping. Those kind of people, like people who consider great are not tapping. Like those are the ones that be like, oh, I cannot. Those are the ones that be like, oh, I can't stand that nigga music. But Eminem, he's the greatest. He's the greatest. He's so good. And they have died on that hill. Look at YouTube. Look at comments. They're like, oh, this is the last instance of real hip hop. Oh, this is real hip hop. Eminem will put out the worst shit. Eminem put out Rap God. And you see comments like, oh, he's really the greatest. This is real hip hop. Like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. This shit is garbage. Like, a few weeks ago, I was out in the field. I was working. When I'm out in the field doing my job, I'm a social worker. When I'm out in the field doing my job, I always like to listen to music because how I pass my time. I listen to music to pass time for anything, but especially when I'm out in the field, if I can avoid crackheads talking to me, no disrespect to them. If I can avoid random people talking to me, if I can just go about my day and keep my day sane, I listen to music. So I always like to, I have this thing where I listen to music and then I sit back and listen to music that came out that I liked a long time ago. And just to hear to remind myself what I liked about it, what was nostalgic about it, the themes of it, and why did I enjoy it so much, and has it aged well? Has it aged well?
Right.
So I was like, bitch, you were talking about 2001. You remember 2001 as your favorite year, as your childhood, for many reasons, the music that you enjoyed. Stillmatic came out that year. The Blueprint came out that year. Fabulous first album came out that year. Jadakiss first album came out that year. There was a lot of great music that year. Ja Rule was at his height in 2001. I think that was his prime year, 2001. Because Putting On Me was out and all that shit. Like Murder Inc. was like lit during that time. It was like Allen Iverson still had them damn braids. It was a great year. It was a great year in my opinion. Like it's one of those nostalgic years of my childhood that I always remember. And WWE was still good at the time. Like a lot of shit. But Eminem was like at his peak at that year, in my opinion, because that's when he dropped Marshall Mathers LP, right? So I'm like, I remember that being one of the albums I liked a lot that year because I was young. I was like 9 years old. And 9 years old.
He dropped the LP in 2000.
It was 2000? Okay, yeah. And the following year, he was still pushing out singles from that album. And he was still like he because I remember The Way I Am came out as a single. If I remember correctly, but he was still riding that album's coattails. So from 2001, it was like Eminem year type shit. The years before that, it was like all about Jay-Z and DMX and shit like that. Yeah, Renegade. He was going. People still to this day, we can talk about that after. But like, I went back to listen to that album, and I'm like, the content is so fucking cringy. Like, it's like horrorcore and all types of other shit. But the technical skills are there, and it's hard to deny it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would never say Eminem can't rap, because if I say that's me being dishonest, like, he is a very skilled rapper, but his content did not age well. It aged poorly. It was like, I was sitting back and thinking, like, damn, the reason why I liked it so much because it was like edgelord, and I was 9 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was 9 years old. I was watching WWE, WWF at the time, and SmackDown and shit like that. Like, this is the kind of like edgy music that I enjoy. But it didn't. In my opinion, I could say that album did not age well. Like, it was just like this cringy material, and it was like Eminem's artistry, in my opinion, is very boosted, very, very boosted. I think I don't even think he hit his peak very early on his career. I could say, people will say like the Eminem Show or Encore, one of them is the albums that like was his peak. I think Marshall Mathers LP might have been his peak. I think that's like the best he could do, and that was it.
Like I think Eminem Show was a great piece of work, but in comparison to Encore, and I think he really honestly could have left us at the Eminem Show. But he did that period of he was gone from Encore up until them relapse recovery shits.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It was like, yeah, definitely. I do revisit the Marshall Mathers LP a lot. I feel like there's true emotion in it. It was honest, even though it was crazy. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I always thought Slim Shady LP was like the shittiest. It was just like, bro, if it was up to me with this album, he would have never made it.
I feel you.
There are no good songs on the Slim Shady LP. Like, there's great rapping, but there's nothing. Like,
and that's a good way to put it. It's good rapping, but the songs are just not good itself. Eminem could rap his ass off. He could rap. That motherfucker could rap. Like, he could rap. If you put him in a room, he's gonna rap. He's gonna rap the whole entire day, and he can freestyle stuff. His skill is there. But it's the content. The content, the songs is just not good in my opinion. Like, there's songs, when I was listening to Marshall Mathers LP, I was like, oh shit, like I used to fuck with this song heavy, like I'm gonna kill you. But I'm just like, this is cringy as shit. It's cringy as hell, but it's just like, okay, I remember, it's nostalgic for me. I'm like, all right, I could fuck with this. Like, I could listen to this right now. Like, I could listen to it. But am I trying to listen to that like frequently? Absolutely not. it was very honest for him and he was being very honest, and it was like, something, a piece that he has to put out. Everybody has their life and their trials and tribulations, and I was like, I just don't really resonate with this. Like,
right.
That's it.
But I mean, a blood stain is orange after you wash it 3 or 4 times in a tub, but that's normal, ain't it, Norman?
Yo. Yeah. It's just wild. But then a Jay-Z, a Nas, a Jadakiss, a Fab, a Lil Kim, those are people that I could listen to growing up. BMX, people I could listen to growing up, and I'm like, okay, this is like soulful. Like, this got kind of like soul to it. Like, I mean, music ain't had no kind of soul to it. He white though, so I don't know, but
I say the most soulful Eminem got was that song "Drips" with Obi Trice on the Eminem show. That was passion right there.
Yeah.
They was basically talking about catching the STD from the same woman, and it was AIDS.
Oh Lord.
It was a wild concept. I used to listen to the song like every day before it was at 6th grade. Like, just I don't know why. Like every morning, I woke up. I'm like, bro, like they really talking about it. Like it's, I guess for that time it's like the most explicit song, and I just liked it because I bought the CD. You know what I'm saying? Like I can listen to this.
Yo, because like when you're younger, you're more, in my opinion, you're more easy to adapt to like, like shock value, because it's like, oh shit, I'm listening to this. I shouldn't really listen to this. Kind of like a taboo kind of thing to listening to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how Eminem was for me. It's more like, oh, this white boy is crazy. My mother's like, this is a crazy white boy. I'm like, yeah, he really is. Like, it was something. It was entertainment. Like I enjoy like seeing some kind of like, it was like an unorthodox character in hip hop. Like this crazy white nigga. He was poor. He grew up poor, and he's a let me not use that word before I get canceled. He's a wild nigga. Like he's a wild nigga, and he has some shit going on with his family, trailer trash type shit. Like, so it was like something. It's like getting because in hip hop people bring different perspectives, and Eminem brought a completely different perspective, and he made it adaptable. People because he could rap. It's like, oh shit, this is like you're hearing about the other kind of like life for poor people, for a different race, and what the fuck they're going through, and they're dysfunctional and shit.
And he was like,
he was laying there on the table like, this is my life. My mother's a drunk. She's this. My wife is a hoe. She's this. I got problems with drug addiction, no type of shit like that. Like, yeah, it's like all type of shit. So it's like a different kind of perspective, and he brings shock value to it. So it was like, damn, this is like okay.
Okay, so I got it. So it's like, in the sense of how like Jay-Z, you could call him Good Times. Eminem was the Roseanne Show.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Well, yeah, we spent a lot of time with Marshall. Let's get back over to that Jay-Z, because I'm not leaving until we talk about this Blueprint 2, the C word.
Yeah. It's not a classic. It's not a classic.
It's a classic.
What makes it all right? It had entirely too many songs. Entirely too many songs. He could have chopped a good 10 of those off, and then would have had a super solid album. I feel like a lot of artists, he said it himself too. He said it himself when he was, I think it was like around when he dropped Magna Carta. He ranked his albums from like best to worst. And I think he said Blueprint 2 might have been his second worst album. And I think the first one, the first worst was, I think, Kingdom Come. It might have been that. And he was talking about it, and I was like, I agree. Like, I didn't really like the second and third Blueprint installments. I feel like the third one was entirely too pop. It was like, I like the Forever Young song, I couldn't stand it. Empire State of Mind, couldn't stand it. I was just like, the lyrics in Empire State of Mind were great, but the actual song was just like, and then this woman singing off key and shit like that, I couldn't do it. On to the next one song, I could not stand it. Forever Young, couldn't stand it. I was like, this is just like a little bit, I'm not fucking with this. I'm not fucking with it. But one thing about Jay-Z, he'll drop a dud and then he'll redeem the fuck out of himself. Like, he did Kingdom Come, and I think American Gangster came right after. I'm like, damn, nigga, all you needed was to get that bullshit out.
Because I thought he fell off with Kingdom Come. I'm like, oh, he's not my favorite rapper no more. And then here
I was like, Lord, what the fuck happened? But I think he was just rusty for a minute. I think he was rusty because when American Gangster came out, I was like, oh, hold on. I'm like, what happened? Like, how you just go from this to this? Like, I think he was rusty. Because if I'm not mistaken, after Blueprint 3, what dropped after that? Was it the Watch the Throne? I remember.
Yeah,
my timeline really fucked up. Watch the Throne was a classic.
Because I think Blueprint 3 was like 09, and then Watch the Throne was like 2010.
Yeah, it was. I remember being like almost done with high school when Blueprint 3 dropped, and I'm like, okay, I think it's probably my 11th or 12th year, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of like, I wasn't really fucking with it. And Blueprint 2, it had. Let me look at the track list for Blueprint 2 because it definitely has some shit on it. Like, for me to say it's completely whack, I don't think it's a completely whack album. I just don't think it's a classic.
Yeah,
I just think it has got them songs on it.
So
I can get over that track list.
It took me like 2 or 3 years to like fully listen to Blueprint 2. Like it, like definitely was times I was like, I'm gonna skip that. That sound butt, skip. But when I finally gave it a chance, it was like, you know what? They had fun with the album. It's different. To me, it showed range. Like for me, it was like one of the first times Jay-Z really went to the storytelling bag for real. You know, like he'll paint a narrative for you on like Volume 1. Reasonable Doubt, but it's like Blueprint 2, that song, Meet the Parents. It was like, he didn't write it down? Oh, she told a story. It's character development. You know what I'm saying? To me, it was like, oh, he hip-hop today, but then he turned right around and make a pop song. You know what I'm saying? The cheesy-ass pop song that's catchy because he got Pharrell on it, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then he gets super lyrical. Let me get Beanie Siegel and Scarface. Before everybody was gutting up Biggie verses, let me get the Biggie duet song on the intro.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like to me, it was just like it painted the times real well. Like the album, it made me feel like Vibe magazine is still in circulation. Made me feel like you know what I'm saying. People still drinking Hypnotic, wearing them button up club shirts. You know what I'm saying? Like it smells good. It feels good, you know what I'm saying? The Beyonce, you know, the song they shown, we're dating. It's our dating song.
I love that song, Bonnie and Clyde, OC Bonnie and Clyde, yeah.
You know,
that's when they formally came out as a couple, like, yeah.
You know, it was a big moment, you know what I'm saying? We all wanted the Maybach. We wanted the, you know, the Scooby-Doos, you know what I'm saying? I just thought, you know, it paints the time. It ages very well. The song's still good, you know what I'm saying? And I've because I had to focus on the road, had to let the album play like 3 times on a road trip, front to back, 3 times in a row. I'm like, you know what? It's not that
bad. One of my favorite Jay-Z songs are on it, Hovey Baby. I love that fucking song. He was like, that's when he was like really talking his shit. He was like talking his shit really. I just think the second disc got too many damn songs. I think I agree that it definitely shows range. I just think that some of the stuff could be cut down, and it definitely could have been. It could have been stronger. I think some of these songs is kind of corny. Like "Fuck All Night" is kind of corny.
They took me a long time to respect that song, but
like it's kind of corny. Like, not like it's. But I don't think it's a trash album. I just think there's some things that I think with every album that's not a classic, there's things that makes it not a classic. Like there's obviously points of like things that it diverged and could have been better if they just honed in on this. Like Blueprint 2 is not a bad follow-up to Blueprint 1. It's just not on, in my opinion, I don't think it's on par with it. But that's the thing too. It's kind of also hard to compare things. It's like When Nas, he got Illmatic, and people always hold him to this kind of standard that's unrealistic because he wasn't in the same mind frame when he made that album. He was a young ass nigga when he made that album. He was hungry, and I say he's not hungry on other albums and stuff like that. But it's like when people have their magnum opus and shit like that, people have to realize when it comes to being an artist, you be in different mind zones that sometimes my friend you can never capture again. And you won't be able to capture again because you're growing as a person. Those are experiences that shape that. So I feel like obviously the Blueprint 2, he's not going to be able to capture that again because he's not the same person, you know, when he made Blueprint 2 as when he made the first Blueprint. So the Nas beef happened, a lot of shit happened. I think this was like towards the end of him and Dame's relationship as well, like around that time. That's another topic. Yeah, but I think it's a good album. I just don't think it's a classic. But Jay-Z has a lot of strong ass albums on his discography anyway, so I don't think it's one of his worst. I wouldn't really if I was to sit here and think like, damn, I think Blueprint 3 is worse than Blueprint 2.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think Blueprint 2 is good. Like it has mad shit on it. So I was shocked when he said that might have been his second worst album. I was like, I don't know if I really agree with that. Like, because Blueprint 3 was kind of air.
Because he made it, which is hilarious about it, but it's like, bro, you know Blueprint 3, Kingdom Come, straight doo-doo butter. You know that.
Yeah. I really don't like Blueprint 3. I'm like, this shit is like his attempt to really be pop, like really be mainstream, like, and really cater to that. And also, I'm thinking he's also dealing with becoming like aging as a rapper and also maturing, but then still trying to be like relevant. But one thing about Jay-Z, he's always gonna be relevant because he is people want to talk about Drake and his like being able to adapt to everything. Jay-Z's the master of adaptability. He's been able to adapt to all eras. He's been out officially since '96. He's been out. He was a rapper earlier than that, obviously, but like with Reasonable Doubt, he's been able to survive the times and be able to remain relevant. As much as niggas try to shit on him and these young dudes try to shit on him, like, oh, Jay-Z's not the best, or I gotta listen to Gucci Mane. Okay, you listen to your Gucci Mane, but Gucci is not on par with Jay-Z in any aspect. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jay-Z is the rapper. Like, we want to talk about, when you want to talk about like an elite rapper, an elite rap artist, Jay-Z's always going to be on top of those combos. So all these young niggas hating on Jay-Z for shit like that, like, whatever. None of that shit you're saying is ever going to, like, hold a candle to, like, what Jay-Z has been able to do for how many years? For how long he been in the fucking game? Like, Jay-Z's goddamn in his 50s now.
Yeah, it's like
he was 27 when he dropped. He was 27 when he dropped Reasonable Doubt, if I believe correctly. So
around that, yeah.
Yeah, around that time. So Jay-Z has an impeccable discography, like, to match his credibility and why people hold him up to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest rapper. So, and I always go back and forth because I'm a super Jay-Z fan and a super Nas fan as well. But I always go back and forth. I see the pros and cons of both of them and why people argue for either one of them. So I definitely get it. Jay-Z will always be like master of flow, lyricism, master of entendres and shit like that. Like he's just so cool with it too. That's what made Jay-Z because like the hustler rap, the hustle rap, and just like his entire persona that he brings to rap is like he's not the super animated nigga, he's not the super gangster nigga, he's just like a cool ass nigga that raps, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that's what makes Jay-Z. And yeah, definitely Blueprint 2 was a good album. Yeah, I just think some tweaks could have been made to it. But other than that, yeah. But I'm still holding it as a classic. Sorry, Matthew.
Well, if we doing that, then I can't give Blueprint 1 classic because of that Jigga That Nigga song.
Oh, please. You know what's funny? Because not to cut you off, but on Twitter, that's like even the song that people shit on. The song that people shit on is actually one of my favorite songs on the album, and it's Hola Ovito. That song, people think that song is the worst song on the album. And I'm like, I actually like this song. Like, I like it.
He was really flowing on that one. I don't know what they talking about.
Yeah. He was like flowing on that shit. Nah,
y'all
motherfuckers better run in the post office to get a job, motherfuckers. The starve motherfuckers. Yeah, like, I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know that people didn't like that song. I'm like, this song is actually mad good. Like, I like Jigga That Nigga too, though. It's cute. I think it's a song. I think it's a song for the clubs with the women and shit like that. When they hear the song, it's like, oh, jigga that nigga. Like, yeah, that's the one right here. Like, it's one of those songs.
I get it, but it wasn't even a single for it to really hit the club like that. You know, so I guess like maybe locally for New York people, but it's like you play that around.
I don't know. I wasn't of age to be in no club, so I'm just talking shit.
I mean, none of us are old enough, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't imagine people really jigging, bro.
And you used to be on the radio out here crazy, though. That used to be on the radio. That was a radio song out here. Like, they used to really play that song. And how many segments sometimes they play, like, old songs, and sometimes that'll come up. Like, that's one of those songs that's, like, always been in rotation. Like, I always heard that song on the radio. I always remember hearing it, like, jigga, jigga, that nigga jigga all the time. I'm like, oh, shit, see. I'm like, I fuck with the song. I like that song.
The perks of city love, because, man, they
right.
not man. But, going back to what you were saying about Nas and Illmatic, and I think this is how we're gonna land this one. Do you know the penalty of leadership?
The penalty of leadership. What is that?
It's a statement that Cadillac, the car company, put out, like, you know, back in the days. Basically, it's like this statement saying, basically, when you do a great work, people are going to hold you to the standard of that one great work. And if you don't match it or go above it, they're going to say you fell off. They're going to question, like kind of like how Jay-Z said, like, man, I give you some thought-provoking shit, yes, is he falling off? I give you Big Pimpin', when you say he the best writer of the 21st century.
Word, yeah.
So it's like kind of like how
Nas is victim to that.
You know, Illmatic, his very first release, it's like, man, they were grilling this dude on his reviews. It's like, anything he puts out is like, man, you know we going to 1994.
Yo. All right. So Nas has had a lot of, in my opinion, and this could be me being biased. I have bias because I love Nas. He's one of my favorite rappers, if not my favorite rapper of all time. I always go back and forth between him and Jay-Z. Like, those are my favorites. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Nas has gotten a lot of unfair criticism. And it's been very harsh because of Illmatic.
Yeah.
And I've always said this for years. I'm not new to hip hop debates. I know you haven't known me for that long, but I've been doing hip hop debates since I was fucking underage. Like, I've always participated in hip hop debates and with people and friends online and shit like that. Like, it's a pastime for me. Like, I kind of still do it, but, like, you know, my chops are still there. You know what I'm saying? I can bring up shit. So, I feel like Nas has always gotten unfair criticism because of Illmatic, and it's a gift and a curse because he gets it from everyone: his fans, actual critics, people who aren't his fans, casual hip hop listeners and shit like that. Like, people just always hold him to the standard of Illmatic, and Illmatic, you can argue, is like the quintessential rap album. You know, like, if you want to teach people about hip-hop and shit like that, if you want to bring them through the history, listen to Illmatic. This is one of the greatest albums of all time, and especially one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, too. Like, this is what, you know, like, boom bap. This is, like, pure lyricism and stuff like that, like, themes. Like, this is, like, it just gives hip-hop, you know? But I think in my opinion, as much as I consider Illmatic, like, a perfect album, like, it's a classic, I don't think it's his best. So, I don't think it's his best album because I think his lyricism has surpassed Illmatic. Like, if you still listen to it, like, this is pretty advanced for 1994, and the shit he's saying and the production is real timeless. It's real timeless. But he surpassed that. Right. And again, like I was saying earlier, not too long ago, that the mindset you're in when you make one body of work, you're not gonna be able to capture that again. So. Right. He was like a 19, 20-year-old. I don't know if I'm correct. He was really young and he was mad hungry. And this is the things he's talking about in Queensbridge. Like, the entire album is about themes of growing up in his life in Queensbridge. He's not gonna be able to tap that no more because past success, you get success from that album, then you get It Was Written. his most successful album today, I think. His best-selling album today, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the album that kind of makes him like a superstar type shit, like a star in hip hop, like really, really, really. And then you put the context in. This is New York hip hop at the time. He's competing with niggas from Wu. He's competing with Jay-Z. He's competing with Biggie. A bunch of niggas who have like different kind of artistry, and artistry that is like people now seeing like, Nas got competition. He's not the king anymore. I don't think he was ever competing to be the king of New York, but he got dragged into it. And, you know, New York niggas are very competitive. Like niggas out here are very competitive. Like they always go, I'm the king of this, I'm this and that. So you put that context there. He's getting pressure to do a double disc album, which should never be because Jay-Z and Biggie are doing double disc albums or did double disc albums or whatever. Now he's getting that pressure to do shit like that. It's just like, I feel like Nas is not given, because he made Illmatic, is not given, you know, like the leeway that other artists could drop some whack shit. I feel like Jay-Z could drop some whack shit and niggas gonna be on his back like how they be on Nas. Oh, Nas production choices. Oh, Nas song right here. The theme is this. Oh, this nigga boring. Or he think he mad smarter than niggas. Oh, this nigga corny. Da, 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 da. All type of shit like that. I was like, yo, bro, like Nas is Nas. Jay-Z is Jay-Z. Biggie is Big. Like Nas is, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like he has not been given leeway. And to this day, recently when there was the Illmatic, like the Illmatic, what you call anniversary, like 20th anniversary, like a few years ago. I think 2014. He had to. I think it was 2015. I don't know. My math be off. My brain be off. He did the anniversary, 20 years. He said after that he don't talk about Illmatic no more because people keep bringing up Illmatic. Like yo, bro, it's like niggas is not always bringing up Reasonable Doubt to Jay-Z. They're not.
Yeah, people do not speak about Reasonable Doubt at all.
Nas Illmatic is a gift and a curse because it's one of the greatest rap albums of all time. But it's like niggas refuse to let him live it down. Like even with like his fan base. Oh, do Illmatic too, or get P Rock back, or get Premier back, or get all the people you had, get Q-Tip back. It's not gonna make another Illmatic.
Right.
Him bringing them people on board is not gonna make another Illmatic. And as much as people be shitting on Hit Boy online, Twitter introduced me to Hit Boy hate. I didn't know all these hip hop enthusiasts and these hip hop like super fans didn't really like Hit Boy's production. I'm not gonna say but like I'm a Hit Boy fan, but I think him and Hit Boy have a good chemistry that has been able to like get Nas a second wind because with the King Disease 1 and King Disease 2 and even Magic, I think Magic is better than KD 1 and KD 2. Magic, he sounds young again. He sounds like re-energized. Like he's having like a second renaissance in his career. And I think people need to like appreciate artists who are aging, hip hop artists especially who are aging, because this is like obviously hip hop is like the youngest genre. So to have people who like are aging in hip hop and able to still make music, that's showing that you can have longevity, that you can age as an artist and still rap. You know, rap is always seen as a young man's genre. You know, so I think Nas, he's had his duds as well. I feel like if you've been in this game long enough, you're gonna have your duds. Like, Nostradamus was like not it in my opinion. Like it's true. It's not a great album. It's not a great album, you know. But I don't think it's as garbage as people make it seem. But it's not a good album.
No, it's pretty garbage.
Oh God. And I think there's some salvageable moments on it. There's moments on it, but overall, it's not a good album. But he's redeemed himself several times. Godson, Stillmatic, the Lost Tapes with the unreleased song that's supposed to be like on IM and shit like that. Like he's redeemed himself several times. He's been able to gradually continue to make good albums, and I feel like he replenished his albums like the duds. He replenished it with KD 1, KD 2, and Magic. Like it's pretty balanced now. His discography is pretty balanced in my opinion. And
like honestly, I don't think he's dropped a trash album since Hip Hop Is Dead, which is my favorite Nas album.
I love that album. I love that album. But the end album was kind of whack. The one that's supposed to be Nigga.
Oh, I forgot about that. I don't even think I ever heard that, honestly.
It's not that good. It's not that good. I think that was towards the end, the tail end of his marriage with Khalees and shit like that. And he also got something else in between, The Streets Disciple, which has moments too. Not the greatest album, not the wackest.
That's one of them blueprint stories right there. Too many songs.
Yeah, that was the marriage album when he was getting married to Khalees. Yeah, like one of those albums like it could have been chopped down, you know. But I think that Nas has a pretty consistent discography now. Now that he's aging and still making good music, and I think people need to get the fuck off his back with that Illmatic shit. Because I know I'll be telling people suck my dick like every moment, like yo, get off my dick, like please. I'm like he's not making another Illmatic, and it's not fair to hold him to like standards that other people don't hold other rappers to that are considered greats. Because again, niggas not asking Jay-Z to make another Blueprint. Nobody asking Jay-Z to make another Music Boot Out. And shit like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not right. It's not right.
Well, actually, when he dropped Kingdom Come, I was kind of like, man, we need another Reasonable Doubt. And then he did American Gangster, and I was like, you know what? Close enough, bro. Close enough.
Yeah, American Gangster was fire. It still is fire. I'm not saying it was, but, like, yeah. That was a good-ass drop after Kingdom Come. Like, okay, he still got it. I think he needed some inspiration. He saw that movie. He was like, okay.
Right. I mean, I didn't think the movie was that great. I've seen it like twice. It's too long for me.
Yeah, I think I saw like once and I haven't watched it again. When I was younger, I didn't have the attention span for movies, so yeah.
Well, yeah, if you got anything else to say, I think this is a good place to cap off the episode.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me. Check out makingyourgrimeyagain.com. Let's say that's Making Your Grimy Again on Instagram. I have merch again. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna link you. It's gonna be in the description, so they're gonna be able to click on it and whatnot. You know what I'm saying, and just go straight there.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today. I appreciate your time, and stay on that mission. It's very important work.
Will do.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another entry of Lavender Water Podcast. I have been your host, Matthew Williams, and this has been my special guest, Karen Garcia.
Yes.
Y'all take it easy out there in TV land. Peace.